This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/Spikima movies.
He pulled a long face, and Mother didn't like it.
Have you ever wondered why this kid-friendly animation is scarier than most live-action horror films? Or why everything keeps repeating 3 times? How about the constant use of a Dutch angle? And what's so special about this side of the frame? Let's talk Coraline from the perspective of filmmaking.
Won't be long. But I might be. It was incredibly real, Mom. Only you weren't really you were my other mother.
Henry Selick's Coraline has been out for over 15 years, and somehow I managed to avoid it until just last week. One of my friends found out and almost killed me for it, so I watched it and I loved it. In fact, I loved it so much that I dropped everything I was working on and went on a deep dive. I quickly learned that A, people don't talk about stop-motion animations like they do live-action films, and therefore B, most discussions about Coraline are story-related theories derived from ideas that are outside the film universe. And this makes sense. It's not exactly easy to focus on the mise-en-scène or the cinematography when you're watching a beautifully crafted, narratively driven stop-motion animation. But you could. So before we get to the meat of the matter, let's do a little warm-up exercise with a popular theory about the well.
It's supposed to be so deep. If you fell to the bottom and looked up, you see a sky full of stars in the middle of the day.
Huh.
The idea here is that the only way you see a sky full of stars in the middle of the day is if the well functions as a portal to a world that only has nighttime. That is, the other world.
Hey there.
A common visual support for this claim is the fairy rings around the well, which are widely believed to be linked with witches.
See?
It's a cool theory, and the supporting arguments are drawn from the film world, one from the script and the other from the set, but it's an ultimately subtractive approach that runs the risk of reducing the scene to a single block of idea and refilling it with too much outside information. Since our goal is to expand on the film world without changing its molecular structure, a better approach would be to contextualize these elements. For instance, take a look at these 2 shots from the opening sequence. Do you think they are simulating the doll's movement in and out of the well, or simply illustrating a magical force at work? What about this shot of the well that parallels the portal? Could this be a proof of the well theory, or a symbolic depiction of the unknown and Coraline's departure from it? And finally, is the graphic match between the eclipse and the closing of the well alluding to the link between the 2 worlds, or is it just a visual nod to the end of Beldam's control? As you can see, this approach helps to keep the conversation going without leaving the film world. And believe it or not, stay more mindful of the fact that the blue curtain may just be f***ing blue. Speaking of blue curtains, Coraline was shot in 3D. So when you think there is a strong pattern in the staging, remember that depth cues are extremely important in 3D films, and most shots were probably crafted with that in mind. In fact, most things in a film always have a more practical reason behind them, so take everything ahead with a grain of salt. But seriously, why is she always on the...
Try some of the chard. You need a vegetable.
It looks more like slime to me.
Okay, firstly, Coraline isn't always found on the right side of the frame. This pattern is hardly substantial in the grand scheme of things, with most later cases being mere visual callbacks. However, it is rather consistent for the first 15 minutes of the film, specifically when Coraline is seen with other characters. So, what could this mean? The most obvious answer would be that the film is trying to prioritize one section of the frame. This would, in turn, lead you, the audience, to associate the character on the right with narrative value and power when multiple figures are present. And this actually makes a lot of sense if you think about what happens in the first 15 minutes.
Zip it!
Build up. While the button-eyed doppelgangers and the soul-sucking beldam are visually daunting, Coraline's real horror is atmospheric. This means that the main goal of the first act is to build anticipation for the first big turn. So when Coraline is about to discover the portal for the first time, the film transfers the spotlight by placing the doll on the right side, heightening the tension with an unexpected switch just before the big reveal. End of Act 1. Now, is this a blue curtain?
Not talking, huh?
Most likely, yeah. But staging is a crucial part of filmmaking that can drastically alter how a scene is perceived. For example, take a look at how this scene plays with depth. You have the window at the front, the mother at the back, and Coraline in the middle. Initially, the shallow depth of field and the motion created by the rain makes you assume that the scene is highlighting the foreground. But in reality, you are likely to pay closer attention to Coraline's mother due to the lighting and the absurd conversation.
I would have died.
That's nice.
And less attention to the 4 bags of seeds that later form the garden in the other world. You could even argue that the rain is a visual distraction that further prevents you from noticing the seeds. Who knows? Conversely, you could have a setup like this, where the foreground object guides the audience directly to relevant background information. 3 candles and 3 portraits, right before the other mother reveals her true color.
For you, our little doll.
But hold on a second. 3 candles and 3 portraits. Even before the first act buildup takes place, Coraline establishes its horror atmosphere by presenting itself as a surrealistic fairy tale. This becomes more evident as the story unfolds, but one cheeky way the film hints at the genre throughout is by using something called the Rule of 3. This rule, most often found in traditional fables, has an event repeat itself a total of 3 times, with only the third one having a different outcome. With the exception of 2 specific events, namely the 3 tasks and the 3 times Coraline goes to sleep in the other world, there are only tints of this idea in forms of visual repetition. The 3 pieces of cotton, 3 apartments, 3 ice cream scoops, 3 dogs, 3 mice, 3 hummingbirds, 3 candles, 3 portraits, 3 kids, 3 bowls, 3 tasks, you get the picture. While the main reasoning behind this rule no longer applies, its narrative application and psychological effects are still relevant. Repeating things 3 times does make them more memorable, increase tension, and make the film world feel surreal, thanks to the many adaptations of classic fairy tales that employ this rule.
Come on, quickly!
But who cares about the genre, the early act build-up, and a few nudges here and there? They are too vague and scarce to create an impactful atmosphere for the entirety of the film. What is the one thing that is always present? The camera. The real horror of Coraline is in the eyes of the camera itself, lurking in the shadows, hidden behind the eyes of others that come upon Coraline, and stalking her as she ventures out into the unknown. Sometimes it prowls behind the bushes as a cat, and at other times as a curious boy next door. But the shots always continue to survey from all corners of the world, muddling the perspective and mystifying the origin. Is it a protection or exposure? A friend or a foe? The ambiguity behind the supervising shots are what keeps the film on edge, even when all is well.
Hello again.
A similar but more pronounced trick is the Dutch angle, a technique commonly used to generate a sense of unease by having the camera slightly tilted on its horizontal axis. And like the surveillance shots, the film correlates the canted angle with different characters, magnifying the effect by adding thematic relevance to the visual anxiety. Take this scene of Coraline discovering the portal. In other films, the Dutch angle shot would 1. Serve to reflect Coraline's disoriented state following the chase, and 2. Imply potential threat. So any suspense that follows would be about the ascertained danger that awaits on the other side. But because the Dutch angle shots in Coraline have a direct link with both the good and the bad, the audience is forced to continue questioning even after reaching the other side. And the suspense is kept high until the truth is revealed. Next time you get a chance, watch the film from start to finish and try to note exactly when the Dutch angle shots appear. While most of them probably won't have as profound an effect as the portal example, they will appear only when the scene entails some kind of a threat, whether it be a story.
I've never been inside the Pink Palace. Thinks it's dangerous or something.
A ploy, or fear itself.
Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep.
Little thing we need to
Go
do.
to sleep.
So sharp you won't feel a thing.
Go to sleep.
Soon you'll see things our way.
From the carefully placed dissolved transitions that hint at Beldam's control, the costume and set design that disclose the other world's artificiality, to the clash between green and blue that foreshadows the battle between Coraline and Beldam, the world of Coraline provides infinite pathways for you to create your own adventure. Hopefully this exaggerated plunge gave you the tools to do so. So take what you will and abandon the rest, or trash all of it, doesn't matter. Either way, the sun has set, and that means our path has come to an end. Because if there is one thing you do not want to miss...
Mom? What are you doing here in the middle of the night?
You're just in time for supper, dear.
It's supper time. Hello everyone. If you couldn't tell, I fell in love with the world of stop motion animation through this film, and I plan to keep learning more about it on my own time. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you Mubi for sponsoring this video. Mubi is an online curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe, ranging from works of iconic directors to emerging auteurs. And since every film is handpicked, it's a great way to watch films you already love and also discover new films you haven't seen before. Since we're on the talk about stop motion, I actually came across a very interesting short film on Mubi called The Bones. It's a 14-minute black and white stop motion short that uses the technique to balance itself between comedy and horror, and it's a very interesting piece that actually won an award at the Venice Film Festival, and if you like trivia, it was produced by Ari Aster. I'm currently in Canada, and so your Mubi selections may look different, but rest assured, Mubi always has carefully picked selection of works that are more than worth watching. Plus, right now, you can try Mubi free for 30 days by using my link at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. That's mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. So go check that out right now, and I'll see you in the next one.